As I mentioned in the introduction, I want to jump right in and talk about some of the brand new changes in Photoshop CS5, in particular a key change, a really amazing change to the Refine Edge command. So if you're brand new to making selections, or if you haven't watched the CS4 version of this training course, then some of this, the first part won't make a whole lot of sense perhaps, but really I want to get to this first for those people that have, and then after this we'll talk about all the other options with making selections in the various ways that we work. Of course, one of the main reasons we want to make selections is to do something like take someone out or extract them out of one photo and put them in another one. So I'm going to jump over to the quick selection tool here and just make a very, as the name suggests, quick selection. You can see because this fellow, there's a fair bit of difference in focal length between him and the background. It does a pretty good job overall, but as you can see, it's missing a few key pieces of information with the very fine detail in his hair. And this is what always used to be a challenge, but in CS5 there's a really amazing solution for it. So I'm going to click this Refine Edge button, and here are the options. The first thing is we now see our photo in here, and we can decide how we want to view it, as an overlay, on a black background, on a white background, as the mask itself, or as a transparent layer. Now I think in this case I'm going to choose black, because what I'm really most concerned about is the parts of his hair that we can't see at the moment. So I'm going to choose that option. This middle part is the same as previous versions of Photoshop, but I wouldn't even look at that yet until I've tried this edge detection area. This is really going to be the key to most of what you're doing right here. And we start off by simply moving the radius slider up a little bit, and it makes a subtle change. I'm going to zoom in here, Command or Control plus, even though I'm in the middle of this dialog box, because really this is the key area we're looking at up here, is the top of his head and the hair around here. So I'm move that radius up a little bit. As I do, it takes a moment and it kind of tweaks the results. It's getting a little bit more. It's a little better. If I turn on Smart Radius, it seems to do an even better job in most cases. And the final step that's going to really make it is using this brush that lets you expand the detection area a little bit. And all you do is paint around. Now you can see those hairs that I was missing. Just like this. Paint a little bit. I think that's looking pretty good there. And then when you let go, it refines, and look at that, it's picking up more of that hair. So the combination of using this radius and the edge detection brush, really pretty remarkable what it lets you do. It picks up things that frankly would have just been much more challenging otherwise. Now you could also come into this area and see what happens if you increase the contrast. That may or may not help. I think in this case it does help a little bit. I might feather just a little tiny bit here. I'm liking the way that's looking right now. Now what I would also do is right away just go and check this, and that looks at the actual mask itself, and it points out a couple of minor places I might need to change, but overall that's pretty darn good. Now if depending on your image, there's a slight fringe of the original color, like say if it was against a blue sky, you might see a bit of blue, or taken on a green screen. This option here, determination of colors, just can help make sure that if there is any bit of that fringe, it will disappear. It doesn't look like there's really that is a problem in this case, so I'm going to just pull this back a bit. Now down at the bottom here, we can decide how we want this to be output, as a new layer with a layer mask, so on. I'm going to choose new layer with layer mask, which means it's going to leave my original background and give me a new layer with a mask. There we go. Now that looks pretty good already, but if we need to, we can go into the layer mask, just optional click on it to look at the mask itself, and it will often highlight some areas that need a little bit more help. For example, I can see kind of a gray in there. That should probably be black. So I'm going to take my paintbrush in overlay mode with a fairly low opacity and just kind of paint over that area a little bit, just to get rid of that little bit of gray we see in here. I think I'm going to fix that in a second. That all looks pretty good. Inside here, I want to make sure that these areas are all nice and white. This area, probably the same thing. Looks pretty good. So at this point, I'm liking the way this looks. Now let's see how it actually looks on another photograph. Take my move tool, click and drag onto another photo. And there he is standing in the foreground of his new house. Let's pretend. And as we look pretty close, again, pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with that. And the nice part is it still has brought the layer mask with it. So if we need to, we can still do things to it, including using the mask panel to further refine the edge if necessary. Now in this particular case, I would just have to add the fact that he's missing a shoulder there just because of the positioning of this. So I would just take it, say, yes, we're just going to add his shoulder. Get that part. Let's get that same color. Very good. That's the new, improved, refine edge option in CS5, and honestly, it is one of the top new features in the program, and it's going to dramatically change the way that we make selections and then really save us a ton of time. Now, as we go through the rest of the lessons, we'll learn about some of the other ways we can do things with the different selection tools in Photoshop. But honestly, this is the technique I'm going to be using most of the time to get myself the kind of look that I want pretty easily.